Getting back into the workforce can be a daunting task. It's spurred Deloitte this week to launch a program for those who've never had to consider what has then come upon them, and that is a career break of 2 or more years. They've dubbed this the Return to Work program. It's all designed for individuals taking that length of time away from the state of play. Applications open early into next year, and to guide you through some of what might be appealing if you're so inclined to apply, Kayleen O'Brien, consulting partner at Deloitte in our Melbourne studio, and with me right here in Sydney, career coach Mark Hodgson, principal consultant at the Transformational Leadership Consultancy. Let's get underway, and warm welcome to you both. To you, Kayleen, in Melbourne, first off, the germ of this idea, I mean, let's just sort of identify it. The UK, they've been underway with this for a year now, so they've blazed the trail, we've picked up the baton.
Yep, that's exactly right. So for Deloitte in Australia, we were getting feedback from our UK firm that they're having some really good success targeting a particular part of the talent market, which is people that have been out of the workforce for a couple of years and were looking to transition back, but needed a little bit more support and a little bit more coaching to help them transition back, and them having some great success. So we're copying that model, and we're about to launch it for our Australian market as well.
What's been, to date, from that experience in the UK, what's been the parameters on length of time away? 2 years minimum, but maximum. Who are you finding is being drawn back, even on this opportunity?
Yeah, so there's quite a range of people that we're finding because we got a really high level of response when we ran it in the UK. So it's people that have taken a career break, the big group, which is people that have taken time out to raise families, but it's also people that have taken time out maybe because of being a primary caregiver to elderly parents, or a sickness in their family, or their own personal life circumstance as well. So there's quite a variety, and not just the typical a mum taking a couple of years out to raise kids.
Mark, from where you're sitting and from what you're observing, the taking time out can then morph into a new awareness of what you have and haven't appreciated about that previous life. So typically, what are some of the issues that are coming up that would point to maybe the sense of this program, but also how we could evolve that next chapter in that person's working experience?
Yeah, I think Kaylee makes some interesting points. I think one of the biggest problems that we find when we take a career break is there can be a real erosion of confidence. People who are very sure, working in a certain pattern, supported by a support network that an organisation gives us, and then suddenly we're away from that, maybe raising kids or caring for other people, or just for whatever, taking a career break. And it's amazing how that confidence erodes. So there are some things we need to do, I think, to help people get back up to speed in terms of confidence. And obviously the Deloitte program is a great example of that in an institutional sense, but obviously most of us aren't going to have that afforded to us. So building confidence or rebuilding confidence is really important. And I think the other thing is taking the opportunity to reassess, because the world of work has changed enormously. I mean, the whole idea of going back to work in terms of going to a building where everyone works is actually quite an old-fashioned idea, an outdated idea now. So there's actually, with this sort of mid-career break, there's a real opportunity to reassess all the various elements of what, if you like, design your life and get that work-life balance, which is also part of the study.
Because you're talking about rebuilding confidence probably from a broader arena of positive affirmation and identifying strengths rather than focusing on weaknesses. I'm putting that out there.
Fun. I mean, I do a lot of mentoring. I mean, this morning I've mentored a guy who's a 10-year military leader in the US, in Denver, Colorado. I've mentored a neuroscientist in Brisbane. Both very smart and accomplished people. But part of what I'm working with them on is actually rebuilding and giving them confidence to step out in their own. So the erosion of confidence is a really, I think, important factor.
Kayleen, when you look to sort of stare that one down in this program, the erosion of confidence, is it also about a pattern of testing, a sense that these people are coming back and are being, they're being evaluated, and they're setting themselves that fresh challenge of, we have an assignment, we have an end of a topic, summary test that we'll be working towards. How does that play out?
Yeah, so there's a few elements to the program that we've designed, particularly to help in that instance. So some elements to it is making sure that there's a cohort. So that's why we've got really a start group that we're targeting. So you've got the confidence building from the other people who are in a very similar situation to you. We've also ensured that each of them will have a career coach and mentor assigned. We've got some training to help support them on those confident building parts, but also just getting up to speed their skill set as well, because that sense that time has passed by, maybe that concern that you're not up to date with some of the big industry trends or tech trends that have gone through. So we've got some targeted training to help on those aspects. I think put those all together and also have effectively a set period. So as you said, Carson, this idea of setting yourself a challenge, it's a 20-week program. So I think that's something that also helps people get their heads around the fact that it's not forever and it's a testing point. And if you can set yourself the goal of achieving what you can in the 20 weeks, that's exactly what we're looking for as well.
And briefly, the UK experience on that 20 weeks, what was the attrition in that time frame?
Yeah, we had a really good rate of keeping people engaged during that time. It was close to a full amount, and then a really good extension rate after it, where we converted the vast majority into permanent roles, which is the exact perfect case that we want to have.
Mark, let's go broader than this. The idea of fulfilment in the next phase, and you've called out a few things that instinctively, you're observing people are doing. In what sort of numbers? This idea of the volunteering dimensions of things, even.
So I think the volunteering thing is really important. I think people get very stuck in once you're out of the workplace for any period of time at all, and 2 years is certainly a long time, you'll feel you're very behind in terms of tech trends and so forth, which we've covered. So the question is, how do you ramp up back up to speed? Now, Deloitte's got a program which is awesome, but for those that don't, there's some really good ways I think you can actually start to broaden your skills. Volunteering is an excellent way. So, for example, I volunteer for Lifeline, I volunteer for my local surf lifesaving club, and that does a few things. One, it keeps your skills quite high. It keeps you socially connected, because it's very easy to get disconnected socially, when you're outside of the workforce, not going to the same place. And I think the other thing is it gives you the ability to develop transferable skills. And I think increasingly employers now, they're not so much looking for knowledge, because knowledge changes. What they're looking for is people who are resilient, adaptable, agile, who are able to add value in all kinds of contexts in the new world of work. So volunteering, I think, it's just one thing, but it's a really good way to help people rebuild their self-esteem, because especially if they've been made redundant, remember, because I was made redundant before I started my own consultancy business. Redundancy is a very hurtful thing. Whatever the reason, whether and there are many of them, it can be a pretty bruising experience in terms of self-esteem.
And how do you then set about fashioning a kind of an all-encompassing idea of what your capabilities might be? How do you open yourself at that point? Because I mean, there is all that there's all that baggage to kind of also deal with, but also time is relatively of the essence.
Yeah, and I take up on Kayleen's point. It was interesting they're using mentors, I'm sorry, but that's sounding very specific. One of the things I do is mentor, and I think it's not about me, but I think it is. This is you might be looking to re-enter the workforce or re-enter the next chapter of your employment. And that might be. So, how do you design the next 10 years of your life?
Right.
And it's not a bad thing to actually have someone help you walk you through that process, because, like most things, do DIY can be tough.
Well, to that point, Kayleen, what degree of sort of stark awareness is there that when they've come back and they've come onto this program, what they had envisaged may not indeed be offered any longer? Things to that point, on the fast-moving nature of everything we're doing, even a whole department may simply have been wound up.
Yep. And I think that's a really important aspect to the return to work, is quickly re-establishing your network as well, because in that sense that time passing, that the people that you might have relied upon in the day-to-day, that's why that idea of the group or the cohort to this program is really important, and the mentor, because it's about getting your network. But also there's another aspect to it as well, that recognising that whilst people were out of work for a period, it's not as though their skills development had stopped. I know from personal experience experience being on I took a year of maternity leave and I returned to work part-time. People that are out of the workforce actually build a whole lot of other skills as well that we want to make sure we recognise those skills. Development of patience and being flexible, be able to juggle multiple things. We want to make sure that when people return to work, we are fully respecting and acknowledging and allowing opportunities for people to apply those newly learnt skills as well that you can build when you're out of the workforce too.
Mark, final thought.
Final thought, one thing, picking up that point, whilst you might not be physically present, build your online position. So build your profile on LinkedIn and Facebook and all those groups so you can get active and start to build those networks even before you look to re-enter the workforce.
Good point. Forewarned is forearmed. Mark Hodges, the career coach, thank you so much. And to you, Kayleen O'Brien, consulting partner at Deloitte, live in Melbourne. Appreciate your input in that program beginning, of course, in February on the 22nd.